Xavi was a legend, not only of Barcelona but of modern football. He was part of the leading club of the century, which brought about the greatest revolution in current football, and was a member of a team that seemed unbeatable, even on its off days. Xavi Hernandez was a great midfielder, winning everything with Barcelona and becoming a world champion with the Spanish national team. He's considered one of the greatest midfielders of all time, or one of the most revolutionary for the sport in the midfield sector. But, like other cases, Xavi is experiencing his worst moment in the post-player career as a coach. He ventured into coaching, and what seemed like a perfect marriage that would last for years ended up collapsing in just half a season. This is the story of Xavi as the coach of Barcelona since his first season, and also a reflection on why great idols don't succeed in coaching their beloved clubs, even though they were idols as players. So stay with me, enjoy the video, and subscribe. Xavi arrived at Barcelona in November 2021, following the dismissal of Ronald Koeman, who was not performing well. The main criticism of the Dutchman was the difficulty in imagining acceptance from the fans for a style that deviates from that. Xavi was called upon at his club in Qatar with the primary objective of reclaiming the club's DNA. There seemed to be no one better suited for this task, as he had been part of the sport's last major revolution on the field and had already been implementing this style at Al Sadd, the team he was coaching in Qatar. However, Xavi had previously been approached by Barcelona to coach the club in January 2020, but did not sit on the bench on that day, in a match against Celta de Vigo that ended in a draw. Expectations were very high. The start of La Liga was quite complicated. Real Madrid led until the 12th round, even winning the first direct confrontation in El Clásico. Then, there were 28 rounds with different lineups between each match, returning to using the same lineup in sequence only from rounds 32 to 34. It was very interesting how Xavi prepared and set up the team depending on each opponent and game situation. The most used formation was with Xavi or Pedri, theoretically one as a winger and the other in the midfield. In La Liga, Barcelona created the most chances, even though they ended up with fewer goals scored than Real Madrid. If we compare the number of victories with 3 or more goals to those with just a 1-0 scoreline, the former statistic prevails. There were 18 wins in the season with 3 or more goals scored and 13 wins by a 1-0 scoreline. Just to illustrate, they managed to achieve effective, intense, high-pressing, and quick possession recovery. This has been a pronounced issue this season, but it was already noticeable since Xavi's first season, and it was also a flaw even in the title-winning season. Barcelona conceded many goals on the counterattack, where initially the team couldn't apply effective high pressing, and consequently, they weren't prepared to regroup and defend in a low block. The team had a sequence of many errors, and it's hard not to attribute some blame to Xavi for this. It's unclear whether he lost the dressing room for some reason, if the players began to lose faith in the work, or became saturated for some reason. But it's a fact that it's not the same style of play as last season, at least not at its core. It lacks the same hunger, the same desire, even though Barcelona creates a lot in some games. The difference in attitude of some players is clear, with Xavi even reporting that Jordi Alba became upset at times. I can imagine that this may have stirred up the atmosphere, because despite the younger players having a lot of admiration for what the then coach achieved on the field, they also admired these 3 for the same reasons and certainly learned a lot from them. Xavi says that, despite feeling angry, Jordi Alba talked and said he was committed. But of course, nobody is a child here. The 3 were hurt and kind of didn't expect this from Xavi. Although they still managed to solve this problem by putting someone as big as these veterans to confront him. It's a shame that his first stint ends like this. Surely he will return in the future, and this season, I think La Liga is already out of reach. But it's impossible to bank on Lewandowski at Barcelona. And secondly, the team's main problem isn't even in the attack. They create chances and score many goals in several matches, so I don't think removing Lewandowski will solve anything. And even if he's going through a bad moment, he's still Lewandowski. You can't discard a player like that. If you enjoyed this analysis, leave your like and subscribe. We'll be back with more content about world football. Cheers.